Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, and in this video we are going to see the most important part of pediatric development. One of the theory, the well-known theory is known as cognitive development theory, which was proposed by Jean Piaget. So let us see in detail about this theory, how the cognition or the knowledge or the intelligence develops in different ages children. So if you see the theory basement, it is a comprehensive theory about the nature and development of human intelligence. It was first created by the Swiss developmental psychologist Jean Piaget. And this theory suggests that intelligence changes as children grow. This is the baseline or concept of this cognitive development theory. Intelligence changes as children grow. That's why he could develop different four types of or four stages of cognitive development theory based on this statement only. And cognitive development involves changes in cognitive process and abilities. So you can observe the changes or you can notice the changes, the involvement of both cognitive process and ability of the children that leads to development of or gaining the insight of intelligence. And a child's cognitive development is not just about acquiring knowledge, rather the child has to develop or construct a mental model of the world. So when we talk about the cognitive development or intelligence development, suddenly a point strikes in your mind is it is only about acquiring knowledge. No, purely it is a development or a construct of a mental model of the world. So the child who is going to record or pre-record everything in the mind or mind mapping about something, it may be object or it may be an event or it may be a symbol, that is going to give knowledge when the situation comes in real, right? So it is not only about acquiring knowledge, it is a development or construction of a mental model of the world. So development occurs through the interaction of innate capacities and environmental events. So this means when we expose the child to some areas or to the environment, the child learning process or the knowledge or the cognition begin to learn. The child is beginning to learn when we expose the child to different environments. Otherwise, there is no experience and no exposure. It is sure that the child is not going to gain anything in the form of intelligence or knowledge. So, if we talk about Jean Piaget, actually, Jean Piaget was employed at the Binet Institute in the 1920s, and where his job was to develop French versions of questions on English intelligence test. And what happened once he became intrigued with the reasons children gave for their wrong answers to the questions that required logical thinking. And Jean Piaget believed that these incorrect answers revealed important differences between the thinking of adults and children. Okay, so this was the event or the scenario how this Jean Piaget developed this theory. And Piaget branched out on his own with a new set of assumptions about children's intelligence. So based on some of the assumptions only, he started collecting the data from various types of children, and finally he come to the conclusion. He has done some research analysis as well. Then finally he proposed the four stages of cognitive development theory. So his assumptions were: one is children's intelligence differs from an adult in quality rather than in quantity, because their point of view or their world of observation is something different than adult. This was the first assumption by Jean Piaget. And second is children actively build up their knowledge about the world, and they are not passive creatures waiting for someone to fill their heads with knowledge, because they are the active creatures. In other words, we can say, because they try themselves, they learn by themselves by looking into the environment or by learning from the adults or the seniors or from the parents, because they are eager to learn. That's why I told you in the previous slide as well, exposure is most important in order to provide knowledge to the children. So the best way to understand children's reasoning was to see things from their point of view. So if you want to understand children, definitely you should go back to the stage called children or sit with children, go to the level of children, then that is the only way you can understand children's reasoning from their point of view if you want to understand. Though these three assumptions were made by Jean Piaget based on his assessment. Then later what happens, in order to test these assumptions, what he did is Piaget studied children from infancy to adolescence using naturalistic observation of his own three babies and sometimes controlled behavior too. He started testing these things on his own children. He had three children and he started his observation from his children only. He used two things. One is naturalistic observation, how the children behaves in the natural settings as well as in the controlled settings also. So from these, he wrote diary descriptions charting their development. So he started noting everything. And he didn't stop there. He also used clinical interviews and observations of older children who were able to understand questions and hold conversations. So, number of observants or the samples he has used, including his own three children, in order to prove his assumptions or to develop this theory, right? And finally, he gave or proposed the four stages of cognitive development. On a sensory motor stage, that is from age birth to 2 years, and the goal of this stage is object permanence. The child learns something out of this stage, that is object permanence. And second is pre-operational stage, that is for the children between 2 to 7 years of age, and they develop symbolic thought at this stage. And the third stage was concrete operational stage for the children between 7 to 11 years of age, and they develop here the logical thought. And the fourth stage was formal operational stage. This is for the children from adolescence to adulthood, and here they develop the scientific reasoning. So these four stages are very beautifully explained by Jean Piaget. Let us see. Yes. So before you move into the stages exactly, the basic components of this theory one must understand. Okay, those theories, those stages or those components are: one is schemas. In other words, we can say these are the building blocks of knowledge or cognition. Okay, schema. Second is equilibrium. Third one is assimilation, and fourth one is accommodation. Once the child passes through all these stages, then we can say that the achievement or the gaining of insight or the knowledge or the cognition is successful, right? Let us see one by one. What is schema? So schema, as I said, it is a building blocks of knowledge. So it is a mental representation or mental template which is already loaded or recorded in the children's mind, or otherwise we can say it is an index card filled in the mind. Okay, and it is a script, in other words. So example, sucking reflex, it is a schema. Okay, so the child understand that sucking reflex gives milk to the baby, right? So, or in other words, when you go to the hotel for the first time, when you see the menu card, okay, that is the very first experience for the child. And when the child goes second time, it is already preloaded. Okay, it is a mental representation of the mental template the child has already learned. Okay, so the second time or the third time, the child doesn't feel any difficulties in reading the menu card or ordering something in the hotel. Okay, this is just an example. So what you have to understand here is schema is a basic or pillar of the knowledge. Okay. Second is equilibrium. So what is equilibrium? When a child's existing schemas are capable of explaining what it can perceive around it, it is said to be in a state of equilibrium. So once the schemas are well developed, then we can say it is in a balanced stage, or it is a state of cognition or cognitive. How? Because the child existing schemas are capable of explaining what it can perceive around it. Okay, with the previous experience or the basic knowledge, the child is already balanced. So the future experiences, whatever happens, the child is able to explain it very clearly, or the child is able to perceive it very perfectly. Right? This is called equilibrium. So there won't be any confusion for the child to understand the thing if the child sees or watches the things for the second time or the third time, because it is already experienced by the child, right? This state is called balanced state of cognition or knowledge. And next one is assimilation. What is assimilation? Which is using an existing schema to deal with a new object or situation. Okay, so now we can say the example of there are different types of Android mobile phones. So the child has seen the one model of Android mobile phone first, and when the baby sees the another model or the updated model, the child is comparing with these two. Okay, so the child is comparing with the existing schema to deal with the new object or situation. So the child is able to understand there are Android mobile phones. This is one of the model, and this is a new model. Right? This is called assimilation. Now, accommodation. What is accommodation? This happens when the existing schema, the basic knowledge, does not work and needs to be changed to deal with a new object or situation. So accommodation here is, now the child is seeing mobile phone, Android mobile phone for the first time, and after some time the mobile phone is not available in the market or the production is completely stopped. Nowhere the child is seeing the model for a long period of time. So what happened? This memory is erased from the child's mind and the child is ready to accommodate the new things. Okay. So this happens when the existing schema does not work because it is already erased from the child's memory and needs to be changed to deal with a new object or situation. The child is going to adopt a new thing, and by erasing the existing thing which is no longer needed or no longer required for the child. This is called accommodation. So when the child experiences or completes all these four components of cognition, then we can say the child is always ready to learn something in the form of knowledge, right? Okay, move to the first stage. It is called sensory motor stage for the children birth to 2 years of age. So what happens here, you have to understand two words, sensory and motor. Sensory in the sense through all the senses of the child, and motor is muscular movements or the body movement the child learn or acquire something, right? So children will experience the world and gain knowledge through their senses and motor movements. This explains why babies love to put everything in their mouth. This is how they interpret objects, right? So anything you give in the hand of the baby, immediately it goes to the mouth of the baby, right? Maybe the baby is seeking some pleasure by putting the materials in the mouth, or sometimes the best example you can say it is thumb sucking, right? So during the first month, the infants will show signs of reflexes. These reflexes are innate and promote survival. Some examples are rooting, sucking, and grasping. Okay, so infants learn things, that things continue to exist even though they cannot be seen. So the most important achievement or goal develops at this stage is called object permanence. For example, if the child is continuously crying but the mother is not available nearby, mother is working somewhere in the kitchen, but still by listening to the baby's cry, the mother is giving or raising his voice by calling the baby's name, so the child becomes quite calm and quiet. So what does it mean? Though the mother is not available nearby, but the child understands that the mother is somewhere, but she is here only. Okay, so though the child is not able to see her mother, but still she able to hear the voice of the mother and understand, yes, my mother is here, and the child becomes calm and quiet. So this is called object permanence. So things continue to exist even though they cannot be seen, right? So this is the most important development the child achieved at this stage. They are separate beings from the people and objects around them. They realize that their actions can cause things to happen in the world around them. Again, the child understand, if I'm crying, I may get anything, whatever I need, right? So that is the thing the child understand here. And in a better way, this can be explained in three stages. One is primary circular reaction, that is between 1 to 4 months. What the child learns here, begin to repeat pleasurable actions. Best example I told you, the thumb sucking behavior of the child. Second is secondary circular reaction between 4 to 8 months. Intentionally, the child repeats actions to trigger a response. So this is some kind of play material, rattle. So when the child shakes it, sound comes. So the child is having some pleasure by moving the objects. That's why it is called sensory motors. Okay, through senses and motor movement, the child is getting some insight. And third one, tertiary circular reactions between 12 to 18 months. Here what happened, the child learns the things by trial and error mechanism. Throwing the object, kicking the object, or beating the object, the child is learning something. Maybe it makes sounds, or it makes different sounds, or sometimes it breaks, the object is breaking. So everything is concluded as a learning situation only, right? So these three, primary circular reactions, secondary circular, and tertiary circular reaction, happens in the first 2 years of age, and the child is learning in different ways. And if you see the second stage, it is called the pre-operational stage for the children between 2 to 7 years of age. And here what happens, they think they learn the things, and they think symbolically, and they learn to use words and pictures to represent objects. So at this stage only we show the pictures of the fruits, animals, and all these things the child is able to understand. The children begin to engage in symbolic play and they learn to use symbols as a way of communication. So another well-known experiment involves demonstrating a child's understanding of conservation. So conservation theory or conservation aspect of this development. Actually, Jean Piaget has done 7 conservative tasks and finally he has come to the conclusion this is a part of this pre-operational stage. And Piaget discovered that children in this stage do not yet understand concrete logic and can't mentally manipulate information and can't understand different points of view people have. And this is known as egocentrism. Okay, and let us see what is conservation task. This is only the symbolic learnings. Okay, between the children in the stage begin to think symbolically and riding the horse, or sometimes they consider themselves as a doctor, nurses, and all these things. Yeah, these are some of the examples. And sometimes the child may act like that using the mobile phones by having banana in their ears, right? So these are some of the symbolic thinking the child understand because already they learn how to understand things through symbols. So these symbols teach something to the children and they develop all these things. This is another example. Now what is conservation task? You can see in the first picture there are 3 glasses and 2 glasses filled with water, and in the second image one of the glass is emptied and it has been transferred to the next lengthy glass, right? So here what happens? Now if you ask the child which glass is having more amount of liquid, definitely the child says the lengthy one. But both the glasses are having equal amount of water. This is called conservation. Okay. So what we have to understand here is though the quantity remains same and the quantity is not going to change if the object is changed, the size and all these things are changed, but the amount of the liquid is not going to be changed, right? But in child's point of view, the child shows that this contains more amount of fluid than the glass. This is called conservation. Now the third stage is called the concrete operation stage for the children between 7 to 11 years of age. Here what they does it they use inductive logic, that is inductive reasoning. It involves going from a specific experience to a general principle. Okay. Example, every time you are around a cat, you have itchy eyes, a runny nose, and a swollen throat. So this may be the reason the child understand why always you have itchy eyes and runny nose, because you are always around a cat. And the mental operation is the ability to accurately imagine the consequences of something happening without it actually happening. Right? And understanding of reversibility, the most important achievement in this stage. This is concrete operational stage. So the concrete development or the understanding the things in a very reasoning way it happens. And the reversibility, the awareness that actions are able to be reversed. This is again the important understanding at this stage. Example, a child might be able to recognize that his or her dog is a German Shepherd, that a German Shepherd is a dog and a dog is an animal. So this you can apply into the numbers also. Reversal of the numbers also can happen. Now the fourth one is the formal operation stage, the last stage. This is applicable to the children aged 12 and above. So deductive reasoning becomes important during this stage. Okay, they are acting like a detective, and this logic requires the ability to use general principle to determine a certain outcomes. And here the scientific reasoning or the logical thought is well developed in the children, and they are they don't believe the things simply, but they are able to understand what is science and what is mathematics, what is ethics and what is politics. So they develop these kind of knowledge at this age. And Piaget also believed kids above the age of 11 developed metacognition. So metacognition, nothing about. It is an awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. Okay, this metacognition is well developed in children above 11 years of age, and the metacognition is the ability to think their own thoughts, their own ideas, what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking. Right. So this is called metacognition. So at this age of time, the child is able to differentiate between the right and the wrong, and the science fiction movies they can understand the reason, they can very well explain, and even they can talk about the politics as well. Okay, these are the development can be seen in the formal operational stage when they are 12 and above, right? So it is well developed. We can see children begin to think abstractly and can form hypothetical ideas as well. Okay, so these are the references I have used in my presentation. I have taken the content from all these two sources. Even you can also go through and you can refer these things and for better understanding. And thank you so much for watching my video. Let us see in the next video. Thank you so much.